Hey there, I'm Douglas V. Gibbs. This is Constitution Podcast. I haven't done a video in weeks and weeks and weeks. We've got the coronavirus thing going on, and if you want my opinion about it regarding percentages and mortality rates and all that, I'm not going to get into that here on YouTube. I would like to keep my YouTube channel, and pretty much anybody who disagrees with the World Health Organization is being shut down. So I'm not going to get into the opinions necessarily regarding the coronavirus. I'm going to get into facts when it comes to Constitution and state constitutions and the U.S. Constitution when it comes to the coronavirus. Now, that all said, part of the reason why I haven't been able to make videos is because due to the coronavirus, my lovely wife, who normally works 6 days a week and loves her job, well, she's been home. And when mama's home and grandkids are visiting, there's not a whole lot of time left for other things. Today, Monday, May 4th, my wife has gone back to work. They're doing online orders. She's filling online orders and curbside, I guess, pickup orders, that kind of thing. So she's excited, did her little happy dance before she went back to work, glad that she's going to be back in the working public, whatever. We were driving around Saturday, after going to a picnic up in the hills. The sheriff decided not to shut us down, and the person hosting made a very interesting comment. Says, did you ever think you'd ever see the day when a picnic was a revolutionary act? Well, yeah, here's the thing, and I want to get started on this, and I've made myself some notes, so I apologize if you see me looking down or reading things, just because I wanted to make sure I got all this information down correctly. First, I want to give you a quote that I had heard from, believe it or not, Expeditions Unknown, the guy who hosts that show on Smithsonian Channel. He says, throughout history, the search for absolute power has always ended in disaster and mass death. When it comes to my opinions regarding coronavirus, I think it's more about absolute power and the attempt to gain absolute power than it is about a virus. Now, to help set up what we're going to talk about regarding the Constitution, the state constitutions, I want to bring up an individual that I am a very big fan of in history. His name was Benjamin Rush. And Benjamin Rush was a doctor and signer of the U.S. Declaration of Independence, political leader in Philadelphia, an outspoken physician, an educator who founded Dickinson College after the Revolution and before the emergence of the U.S. Constitution. He attended the Continental Congress, served as Surgeon General of the Continental Army, and became a professor of chemistry, medical theory, and clinical practice at the University of Pennsylvania. He was an enthusiastic supporter of the American Revolution, who was also a leader in Pennsylvania's ratification of the Constitution in 1788. Rush was active in the Sons of Liberty and was elected to attend the provincial conference to send delegates to the Continental Congress. Thomas Paine consulted Rush when writing the profoundly influential pro-independence pamphlet Common Sense. He opposed slavery, advocated free public schools, and sought education for women, and sought improved education for women and a more enlightened penal system. And as a leading physician, Rush had a major impact on the emerging medical profession. Rush criticized General George Washington for his Continental Army being out of order. I wonder, and we'll stop there for a second, I wonder if that's where a well-regulated militia came from when writing the Bill of Rights. A well-regulated militia is one not one that is regulated by the government, but one that is in good order. The word regulate at the time meant to put in good order. And so something that was not well-regulated was not in good order. So a well-regulated militia is a militia in good order. And I wonder if Benjamin Rush's criticisms were influential in that wording. All right, back to what we were reading. He criticized George Washington for his Continental Army being out of order, and he believed the persons beneath Washington were mismanaging the war. However, after victory, he proclaimed that it was because of God's grace and not the ragtag army put together by the young country. Rush later expressed regret for his criticism in a letter to John Adams in 1812. Rush wrote, he, Washington, was the highly favored instrument whose patriotism and name contributed greatly to the establishment of the independence of the United States. Rush felt that the United States was the work of God. I do not, and this is a quote, I do not believe that the Constitution was the offspring of inspiration, but I am as perfectly satisfied that the Union of the United States in its form and adoption is as much the work of a divine providence as any of the miracles recorded in the Old and New Testament, unquote. In 1798, after the Constitution's adoption, Rush declared, the only foundation for a useful education in a republic is to be laid in religion. Without this, there can be no virtue, and without virtue, there can be no liberty, and liberty is the object and life of all republican governments. Okay, so why did I bring up Benjamin Rush? What's the point of all this? And what does he have to do with, well, the coronavirus? All right, I have been criticized by some people who say, hey, Doug, you keep bringing up the Constitution. There's no way the Founding Fathers could have seen something like this coming. A global pandemic that, once again, I've got my opinions regarding that, but we won't go into that. A global pandemic that has put everybody at risk. How are they going to see that ahead of time? Well, see, they experienced the yellow fever in the 1790s, and then the bubonic plague was in recent memory. The Founding Fathers, the framers of the Constitution, that generation was well aware of medical ailments and how disease could wipe out populations. Now, this current coronavirus thing, I don't believe is necessarily one of that as serious of a virus as one like the bubonic plague. I don't think it ranks within that. Again, if you want my opinions, listen to my radio show on KMET 1490 AM, read politicalpistachio.com, which Facebook has disallowed me from posting links from on Facebook, and 5 other social media sites have literally shut me completely down because of my opinion. Once again, that's why I'm not getting too much into my opinion here on YouTube. I don't want to suffer the same fate at the hands of the leadership, we'll put it that way, of YouTube. So I'll stick to this Constitution. So why did I bring up Benjamin Rush? Because he saw what we're going through. I believe what we're seeing with the shelter at home things and all that, it's more about control than it is about a virus. It goes back to my quote earlier. Throughout history, the search for absolute power has always ended in disaster and mass death. I believe this is a search for power. Now, that said, what did Benjamin Rush have to say about it? He did have one complaint about the Constitution, and he said this: unless we put medical freedoms into the Constitution, the time will come when medicine will organize into an undercover dictatorship. To restrict the art of healing to one class of men and deny equal privileges to others will constitute the Bastille of medical science. All such laws are un-American and despotic and have no place in a republic. Now, there have been questions on whether or not he said exactly those words, because the word American really wasn't in common use until the 1820s. He goes on to say, all such laws are un-American and despotic and have no place in a republic. The Constitution of this republic should make special privilege for medical freedom as well as religious freedom. All right, so we'll stop there. Benjamin Rush. All right, so Benjamin Rush warned of a medical dictatorship, of using medicine to control the populace. When it comes to the U.S. Constitution and this coronavirus, there are no caveats in the Constitution for medical emergencies or public health emergencies. So therefore, it does not say Congress shall make no law regarding freedom of religion, speech, press, assembly, or the right to petition the government for redress of grievances, First Amendment, unless there's a virus, the virus, coronavirus, any health emergency is not a caveat. Federal government doesn't have the authority. So, now, what authorities do the federal government have? Well, a virus, like the coronavirus, would be sort of like an illegal alien. So the job of the federal government would be to keep it from crossing the borders into our country. Once that is inside the states can request federal help, but it's really more of a state matter. Federal government can help out if requested, but they cannot impose themselves on the states. All right, so for example, on January 31st, it's funny, I was talking to a sister-in-law of mine the other day, and she was saying, well, President Trump was slow to react. He could have kept this virus out of the country. He was slow to react. He didn't act fast enough. Actually, on January 31st, before anybody was even concerned, and while the Democrats were still trying to impeach him, President Trump banned travel from China. He took action before anybody. And that was a constitutional thing to do. Once again, you're trying to keep the virus from crossing from international into our country. So crossing our border illegally, or at least dangerously. Maybe not illegally. I don't know about green cards for viruses, but nonetheless. Now, we have to go to, once it got into the country, now, what was going on? The Trump administration then decided to make recommendations and appeal to the private sector to help. Once again, a very constitutional thing to do. So now let's talk about the states and the counties and all of that. And what they've been doing. Shelter in place. I've looked at all the state constitutions. There is not a single word in any of the state constitutions that gives the state governments or counties the authority to quarantine the healthy. If someone's got a deadly illness and they need to be separated, they have authority to quarantine individuals on a case-by-case basis. Do not have the authority to quarantine the healthy. So now, I'm talking about state constitutions because the United States Constitution is really written more for the federal government. State constitution is really what's going to determine what the states can do. And when it comes to the state constitutions, and I'll talk about California's more because that's my state. I'm in Southern California. The state constitution does not give the state government the authority per se to take care of those those case by case situations regarding quarantining as well. Those authorities are given to the county health officials. So really, it's at the county level. And then they can give recommendations, but they don't have the power to make law. The only bodies able to make law are legislative bodies. And in Article 4 of the California State Constitution, it says that all legislative powers are vested in a legislature which will consist of a Senate and an Assembly. And that's interesting because it uses the word vested, the same word that's used in Article 1, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution, granting legislative powers to the Congress, same word that's used granting executive powers to the President in Article 2, and the same word used granting judicial powers to the Supreme Court and the inferior courts of the federal system in Article 3. Vested. What does vested mean? Well, in the 1828 Webster's Dictionary, which I love to refer to often, vesting is a permanent transfer, a permanent granting of power. If you go to Blackstone's commentaries, it is unalienable authority. And so what we're looking at is if something is vested, the legal term when it comes to government is that it is a granted authority that is irrevocable. So that means that the governor and that means that the county health officials cannot act legislatively. They cannot make laws. In California, we were told that the legislature gave the governor broad legislative powers so that his executive orders would hold the power of law. They can't do that legally. They're not supposed to do that legally. They should be sued. They should be arrested. Because it says in the California State Constitution, as it does in the U.S. Constitution, the word vested when it comes to the delegation of those powers. So we have state governments who, A, have no authority to quarantine the healthy, and 2, we have governors acting legislatively and health officials acting legislatively, both of which do not have the power, separation of powers, and they cannot be given those powers from the legislature because the legislature was vested with those legislative powers through the state constitutions. I'm willing to bet your state constitution says the same thing. Then we have to go over to the 14th Amendment. 14th Amendment in the U.S. Constitution. Let me pull my 14th Amendment out, or my Constitution out real quick. 14th Amendment is also very interesting because what it says is that no state shall make or enforce any law or shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Last time I checked, a virus is not due process of law. Last time I checked, then, the states cannot tell me that I'm going to lose my life, liberty, or property, or at least don't have access to it during a time period, without due process of law. Then we go over to Article 1, Section 9 and Section 10. Going through my Constitution again here to find this. I didn't mark the pages. Maybe I should have. And in both of them, it says that, and I'll read Article 1, Section 10, no state shall pass any law impairing the obligation of contracts. There is a similar clause in Article 1, Section 9. So government at the state or federal level also cannot interfere with the obligation of a contract. That would include a renter's contract. That would include an employment contract. Wait a second, they're telling these people they got to be furloughed or something like that. So our government is acting in ways that's outside their authority. Why would they do such a thing? It's a pretty powerful virus, I guess, right? Or is it an opportunity? Rahm Emanuel said, never let a crisis go to waste, right? And this is one heck of a crisis. And earlier in this coronavirus crisis, James Clyburn stated that it was given them the opportunity to create a structure more along their view. What did he mean by that? It's an opportunity for authoritarianism. And we should have listened to Benjamin Rush. Benjamin Rush warned us against medical dictatorships. A totalitarian situation created in the name of medicine. Part of the difficulty is we live during a time in which the generation that is young right now are afraid of everything. Peak oil is on the horizon, according to them. Climate change is destroying the planet, and it's never going to be the same. And they don't have time to change it. And gosh, these darn, racist, bigoted, sexist right-wingers are just running the system. But don't worry, they'll fix it all with this brand new idea called socialism. I saw a t-shirt the other day, and it said revolution on the front. And on the back it said, please excuse something. We are in the process of changing America, something like that. Please excuse our mess, kind of thing. And I'm like, they think this is something new. I was talking to a progressive on a recent trip to the state of Oregon. I own some property up there, and in the southwest corner of Oregon and Brookings, and I was talking to a progressive there, and he says, well, the thing I don't like about the Constitution is I believe we should look forward and not look back. My response was, well, actually, you're looking forward with the Constitution. It is a relatively new idea. It's less than 250 years old. Meanwhile, the idea of collectivism, socialism, all of this has been with us for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and every time has failed. So if you want to look forward to a new idea, liberty is it. All right, now that I've said all that, I hope you're equipped. I hope you understand the political implications here and how our president, for the most part, has been remaining within his constitutional bounds, and our governors have not. Our health officials have not. The shelter-in-place rule, I'm not going to give a medical opinion about it, but from a constitutional point of view, it's illegal. There is nothing in the U.S. Constitution, state constitution, or any of the state laws that I could find that allows the state governments or county governments to quarantine the healthy. And then there's, of course, everything else I went over. So hopefully that helps clear that up. I'll get back to the Constitution study videos down the road, too. Once again, the last 6 weeks, wife's been home, grandkids been in the house. It's just never really a chance to get in front of the camera. Thanks for watching. PoliticalPistachio.com, DouglasVGibbs.com. If you want to help fund what I do, either one of those sites have a yellow donate button. Go there and help donate. Help fund. Radio program right now is about $500 short in its funding, so I could use some help there. Radio program is on KMET 1490 AM every Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. Pacific out here in Southern California, and I've been hammering on this stuff on the show. Nice thing about the station is the owner of the station says, hey, I don't care what you say, just don't tick off the FCC. And he's been very supportive, and so we've been really hammering on this issue from my opinion point of view. I was starting to put those videos of those shows on this page. Once again, I didn't want to get into a tit for tat with YouTube, so I decided not to. So if you want to hear those programs, go to KMET1490am.com, find the Constitution Radio page. There's a podcast link there, and then you can go back and listen to the past shows on SoundCloud. Or just look up SoundCloud Constitution Radio. You should be able to find it. That all said, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time I get a video out. God bless America. God bless you. United we stand. Combined we kick butt. Where we go one, we go all. We'll see you next time. Be safe.